Hey, I'm Dietec, and behind me I have an InWin 301 PC case, which I'm going to be unboxing and reviewing. Now, what's different from a review that you might get somewhere else is that I am a PC modder and will be looking at this case from a PC modder's perspective. I'm going to be breaking down and taking apart this entire case to see how modular it is and see how easy it would be to modify. And then after all that, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do to this case so that if you wanted to get this case yourself and you wanted to modify it, you already have some ideas that you would be able to play around with. So the first thing that you see when you open the box is a bag full of all the screws and everything that you need to assemble the case. And in there is the manual, which is kind of important. And I've never really seen this come with a case before, but it comes with a GPU bracket, which you just put under your graphics card, and if it's really heavy, it just holds it up and prevents it from sagging down. That's a really awesome little addition, and as a modder, it just saves you from having to make one yourself. Just first impression, seeing this case for the first time, it's super premium. The entire thing is metal. It's got a tempered glass side window, and there's just a button up here. You just press it down and it just folds out like this. All the screw holes and everything on the sides here that you can see through the window are blocked by this weird pattern. You can kind of see right here, this is a weird little pattern that kind of blocks all of those screws from being visible when you're looking at it from the outside of the case, which again, I've never really seen on any other case. So the inside is actually pretty small, and it's got the power supply shroud up on top instead of the bottom, which is pretty atypical. And you only have one option in this configuration for where you can put your power supply. The power supply fan has to be facing down into the actual case, so it's taking in air from the case, pushing it up into the power supply, and then out through the back. And there's a pretty big fan-sized hole right here that the power supply intakes air from. Now usually your power supply would be down here on the bottom in a normal, typical case, and it would intake air from outside through the bottom of the case and then push it out the back, which means the air that it's dealing with doesn't have anything to do with all of the air that's coming into your case and feeding your CPU, GPU, whatever radiators you have, anything like that. But intaking air from the front and then pushing it out up into the power supply and out the back, your power supply is not going to overheat. It's never going to happen. And this means you have a second means of exhaust because your air will be coming in and being exhausted through the fan that you have here, and it also will be taken up into the power supply and exhausted through that as well. And having your power supply taking in air from the inside of the case is not going to heat up any of your other components at all, so it's not really a big deal. It's actually a pretty smart design. There are some perforations here on the bottom of the case where your graphics card will be mounted. There's PCI slots that are right here, and your graphics card will be intaking air from the outside world through these perforations, through this dust filter here that's mounted onto the bottom. And if you have a blower style cooler, it will be taking in air from the bottom and then exhausting it out the PCIe slots, which means your graphics card won't be contributing to any of the hot air inside of your case at all. And if it's an open style cooler, which I think is what most people have, I don't think this configuration would heat up the inside air of your PC case more than 1 or 2 degrees, so it's not that big a deal anyway. Now on the front panel here, you have your power button, reset button. This InWin logo will light up red, and so will the areas around the headphone and microphone jacks and the USB 3.0 ports. So if you have parts inside of it and you turn it on, if you have the black edition of this case, this will all light up red, and if you have the white edition, it'll all light up blue. And actually there is an RGB edition of this case that will be out relatively soon, and that will just be able to light up whatever color you want it to be. Now that case isn't actually out yet, but it is the same case just with a few small upgrades like RGB lighting in front. So this review will be applicable if you're looking at that case as well. And lit up, it'll look something like it does here on the manual. Now the front panel and the top panel are actually the same piece of metal. So you can't take off the front panel or the top panel separately. You're actually going to have to drill out some rivets if you want to take these two panels off. And this side panel is held on just by 2 captive thumb screws. So you just unscrew them and it will come right down just like the other windowed side panel does. It's got perforations here in the side of it that will allow for air intake. And this is actually the only air intake that the front of the case draws from, so that could be considered a weakness of this case. You won't be able to really block off any of this area, or else your case just won't get any air whatsoever flowing through it. I think when I work on this case myself, I'm going to be modifying either the front panel or the side panels or something like that to allow for more airflow, since I consider that to be a weakness. So taking that off, you can see that all of your front panel jacks and everything like that, they're just stashed in this little cable routing area right here. And you can actually just unplug most of these cables from the front panel, just like you would unplug a fan from the motherboard or something like that. It's very easy. And then these cables here for the USB ports on the front of the case are less easy to take out, and then you have a cable right in the middle of those just for grounding, and it attaches to the metal of your case. Now up at the top next to the power supply area, we have the drive bay area. This is a removable drive bay, and here at the top it holds one 3.5 inch drive, which is what I think most people have. I don't think most people have more than one 3.5 inch drive. Usually it's just one of those and then an SSD as well. And for this 3.5 inch drive bay here, it has a little tray that slides out that you attach your drive to and then slide it back in. You could mount your SSD in this bracket as well. There are mounting points for you to do that, but most people usually have an SSD and a hard drive, and this is the only area in the case that you can put your hard drive, and there are other areas in the case that you can put an SSD, so this is probably only going to be for your hard drive. As for your SSDs, I'm going to remove this drive bay and show you where those are mounted. So there are two screws here on the back, and then you turn the case around, and there are 4 more screws here on the front. When you take all those out, the drive bay just pops down, and you can slide it out of the back of the case here. And down here on the bottom of the drive bay cage area will be your SSDs. It can house 2 SSDs, one here and one here. So without modifying anything in this case, just using it as it comes from the factory, you can have 2 SSDs and one 3.5 inch hard drive, or 3 SSDs in this case. Now that we have the hard drive cage out from up here, I'm going to be taking out the screws on the cable routing area and the front fan grill. So there were 4 screws holding on this fan grill onto the front of the case, and 2 of the screws that you need to take off for the fan grill, as well as 2 more screws on the other side of the cable management area, are what you need to remove to take out the cable management area altogether. Down here at the bottom of the case, you just have your 2 case feet, and these are held on by 2 screws underneath these little foam pads here. They're not glued in or anything, so you can just grab them and pull them out, and then unscrew those screws there on the bottom. You need to be able to get behind the case feet to get at these rivets here if you want to drill out all of the rivets and take your case completely apart if you wanted to, let's say, paint it or something like that. And to open up these PCIe brackets here at the bottom, you have to take off this little metal piece right here, and that will allow you access to all of the screws that hold in the PCIe brackets. Now to get this front I/O area off of your case so that you can paint it or whatever you want to do, you just very simply take out these 3 screws here on the side. So that's your front I/O completely removed, but you still have to detach it from the grounding point on the case. And there you go, fully removed, and now you can paint your case without worrying about getting any paint on this thing. And the only thing left to take off now is this little plastic piece that allows the locking mechanism on the windowed side panel to lock onto the case. And that is as far as you can take apart this case without actually drilling out any of the rivets that hold all of the panels together. But this is actually a really good amount of modularity for if you wanted to take apart your case to mod it. One of the faults of this case is obviously the restricted airflow intake, but I'm going to try to cut out a little bit of the front panel so that I can fix that problem. Besides that, I want to paint the case to have a sort of like nebula slash like space theme. So I'm going to be cutting out this front panel and hopefully mounting some LED fans behind it so that you can see them through the cutout areas that I have on the front panel. And that would just look super cool, as well as helping out with the airflow issues that the case has. And besides that, and painting it to have a space theme, I want to, on the inside of the case, modify all of the parts to kind of go along with that space theme, as well as modding the power supply area, just because having it all black looks kind of crummy. And hopefully I'll be able to figure out a way to cover up the hard drive cage as well, so that you can't see it from the window. The only other weakness of this case is cable management, in that it is a little bit difficult to get all the cables onto areas of the motherboard that you're going to need to get them to. So I may end up cutting holes into areas that there aren't any, just so that I can route some of the cables into areas where they would be close to where they have to go onto the motherboard. So there are definitely some weak points to this case, what with mostly just airflow, and then some of the cable management could be kind of annoying. But if you can work around those issues or manage to fix them like I plan to, this case is just awesome. It's really, really premium, high quality, just nice looking. A tempered glass window with a super easy and intuitive disconnection mechanism. A completely metal exterior, illuminated I/O ports on the front. I mean, this case is like, it's beautiful. I'm actually super jealous of not having this thing in my own living room. Anyway, I hope this video kind of helped you out in deciding whether or not you want to buy this case for yourself. And like I said, I'm totally planning on modifying it and making it look awesome, so if you're interested in seeing that process, or you liked this video and you want to see more, go ahead and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next one.